Hey folks, welcome back to Gaming Garbage, where we take a look at games, chat about the gaming news in the industry, and of course, stream for fun. Today we're doing Gaming News Consolidated. This is October 13th through the 19th. This is where I take time every week, several hours. This is probably roughly about 6 or 7 hours this week of going through different videos and articles and consolidating the news for you all in one place in one podcast while you get to watch something. And so, yeah, we'll be going over stuff with Xbox and their console. We'll be going over some changes there. We'll be going over too, like 343 Studios is now Halo Studios. We're going to be going over too, I think, a little bit of misunderstanding with someone at Halo Studios. This is Melissa Boone, but we'll be going over that. And then, yeah, we got some other stuff with layoffs and Game Freak. We have some more Tomb Raider games coming. We have an update on Steam. There is a bunch. And so, yeah, thanks for tuning in. You can always like, sub, jazz, all that. And, yeah, we'll go ahead and get into this. So the Xbox is certainly not going to be just a console anymore. I think some of us absolutely know that. But it'll be an easy way to access actual games and an easier way to play. We still have a console for the foreseeable future, but they want to expand cloud gaming, not to just be Game Pass, which is currently 300 games for the cloud through Game Pass, quite a few games, but the entire library. And this honestly really shocked me because it means that every single game that is now going to be on the Xbox store, they will actually want to be able to have it in the cloud so that they can stream it to you. And this is pretty big. Maybe not for most of us here, like in the States or even in parts of Europe, but because when you can just stream it, it doesn't really matter what your hardware is, because your hardware doesn't have to actually process or run the game. The game is run for you, and Xbox will stream it to your device, whatever that is. The idea is that they do have to build the infrastructure on Xbox's side to provide thousands and thousands of titles, current and in the future, to play wherever and on whatever you have. This is PC, TV, like some TVs actually just have it built in, like some of the Samsungs, Fire Stick, the Xbox console, which they have said they are still going to continue to make and process for those of you, those that actually want a console. Android phones, Google phones, tablets, whatever. As long as you have an internet connection and the download speed to play, you can actually do this. And all you need for Game Pass is 10 megabits per second, which is just about most of the people in the world. Even most of Africa actually has 12 megabits per second. Yeah, that's pretty baffling. That's just totally insane. And this drastically lowers the financial entry to actually play games. Because, for a lot of the world, maybe they have a particular console or like some of the older consoles and stuff, or maybe just kind of mobile games to an extent, or for those that can actually afford like a PC and whatever. Again, it's not like everybody has exactly the type of access like we do in the States or in Europe. Some people are generally pretty limited, but like here in the States, we can generally buy whatever we want to an extent, or kind of focus on a certain platform and still play games and have access. But yeah, not everybody has that. And so this is providing quality AAA titles, even on your phone at this point. So again, they still have to build this infrastructure, but this honestly, I think will be pretty big. So yeah, ultimately Xbox handles the heavy lifting for you, so you can play on wherever and whatever you have. This is also not likely to come to any Apple products due to Apple policy, and also their business model, as they're very closed off, of course. There'll also be limitations on some games. This isn't like absolutely every single game, but it can and will expand past Game Pass. But it is also up to the publishers to agree to actually have their games in the cloud and on Game Pass. So I imagine if that is going to be the agreement, if the companies do want their games, or at least some games, they'll be paid, of course, by Microsoft. But if they don't want their games on cloud or on Game Pass, they probably want to capture as much revenue as they can themselves. And I wouldn't be surprised, too, if some other companies in the gaming space actually start doing this, too, with what Xbox is doing. So they'll be a little behind the curve, but hopefully not too much, because I think competition would still be good. Otherwise, Microsoft kind of has their own monopoly. And they still might have a monopoly for a while, But we don't want them to have an entire monopoly. I'll, of course, go over this in more detail in a future State of Gaming, so you can keep up with that. The countries that will be starting with launch, with the cloud basically being every single game on the Xbox store, and they haven't laid out exactly how many games. Again, they'll continue to expand the gaming library for the cloud, and they'll continue to expand the territories. But the countries that'll launch with this is North America, so Canada, USA, and Mexico. A lot of Europe, but not every single country. New Zealand, Japan, and South Korea. And I think another one was Australia as well. Xbox already updated their mobile launcher for handhelds, so it makes it easier and it's more streamlined to get around for the service, whatever you're playing on. When we take a look too at Xbox mobile games, Call of Duty and other Activision Blizzard games, and everything else, we're looking at already 500 million monthly active users under the umbrella of Microsoft Gaming, which is pretty insane. And allowing everything to be streamed to you, removing that barrier to access or financial barrier to be able to play some of these AAA games, and just streaming it to you in the future, I think that'll be pretty big. Again, over here and probably over in Europe, not everybody is excited about that, myself included, because it kind of pushes away physical copies and pushes more toward digital. And even to the point of not even you really buying the digital license for these games, but just having them streamed to you. So there's even, like, in a way, less ownership, because at least buying a license allows you to have a ticket to gain access. And I guess in a way that's what paying for cloud is. You have a ticket to be able to pay for that. But yeah, it gets pretty convoluted pretty quickly on really what kind of access you actually have. So yeah, I'll get all more into this in a big thing. But yeah, this starts to roll out next month in November 2024. And one of their first games that they're adding is actually Black Ops 6. And this is actually going to be on the cloud day one, so October 25th. But they're going to start rolling out the program in more of a bulk package starting in November. But yeah, this is just crazy. I could certainly see Microsoft 2 adding a handheld that's maybe a little more comfortable than a phone, or maybe some kind of improved backbone. But again, their motto is anyone, anything, anywhere. That's what they want to provide. And now we're adding any game. So this is pretty wild because, with 500 monthly active users across all of their services and games that they're playing and across all of the devices, we're already, several times bigger than Steam, which is pretty crazy, and several times bigger than PlayStation 2. Actually, if you put Nintendo, PlayStation, and Steam together, they're bigger or as big than all of them put together, which is pretty wild. Okay, so let's actually talk about Halo Studios. So this is going to be probably kind of upsetting for some of you, but again, I'm here to actually provide information, and I think some people are getting the wrong idea of Melissa Boone as the Chief of Staff Director. And so, yeah, just hear me out for a minute, because, again, I want to make sure that people actually understand what her job is. A lot of people have been saying that with Halo Studios and the change, they now have a Chief of Staff Director, and her name is Melissa Boone, and she's got a DEI background, and they're not overly excited about that. Quite a few people, and I got to say also myself included, I just want games to be focused on as games. I'm not overly interested in trying to promote one particular social class over another one. I just think we're all people here. We're all whatever country you belong to, and let's just get along, honestly. But it is frustrating that some of this stuff too is promoted, and then the games suffer for it. And that sucks. But what Melissa Boone's job is Chief of Staff. And, many are currently worried because Boone's previous position was social research for user experience at Microsoft. There's actually quite a few DEI team members and teams. She was Melissa Boone headed one. But a lot of these DEI members were fired. But DEI also doesn't mean that it's gone necessarily. We still have that a part of Xbox and many other bigger companies, and usually it's because of the ESG score that a lot of the bigger companies have to adhere to, and that's a whole new thing that I can talk about later if you wish. But yeah, back to Melissa Boone. She was the lead, yeah, again for this team, but yeah, many of them have been laid off. As far as I know, it was just her, maybe a few other people, but now they've been spread between different studios within Xbox. She was given the position of chief of staff in April of 2023, and she was put in that position when 343 Studios was still 343. So some people are believing that she was put in as soon as basically the changeover was happening from 343 to now Halo Studios, as if this is going to change Master Chief and all of that stuff. But no, she's already been a part of it. So yeah, she wasn't added when 343 was rebranded, which was October. She was put in the position of April 2023, which was basically 18 months ago. So she's been in the position for a while. And honestly, I want to think about what the chief of staff does. Well, even in her own words on her LinkedIn account, she says that her goal is to provide and help with a smooth operation of the studio. So that means making sure all of the pieces are working together, all the departments are working together. And this isn't necessarily an HR position. That's more with dealing with the working specifically of the individuals with whatever problems they're dealing with in the studio. A chief of staff is more or less making sure that all of the components are working together, and that if there's any issues like with communication or something else is needed to create the product or service, they're actually providing that. So in her own words, she's a problem solver, a strategic thinker, a communicator, an advisor, and again, this is for the actual studio to run as smoothly as possible. You could think of her as like the oil to an engine, but the engine is actually the one doing the combustion, and the studio is still going to work on making the game. Now, Xbox, whether we like it or not, still has DEI in it, and they will continue to do so along with these other companies too, like Embracer Group, like Take-Two Interactive, like Ubisoft, like EA. I mean, fill in the blank. There's plenty of them. And it's not like this either is going away. And so if it is a really big issue, stick to the older games. Don't buy the newer ones. Because, I mean, whether it's Veilguard, Assassin's Creed Unity, or GTA 6, I guarantee you all of that is going to be in there somewhere in some shape or form and will continue to come in with new content. So it's going to be built into the cake, and there's just no way around that. But I don't think that means that we can't honestly enjoy some of our games if the games are built really well. Personally, that's how I see it. She does have a background, of course, that people don't enjoy. She will have some influence over the studio that is making Halo, but again, I really want to reiterate this. Her role is to help the people in the studio make the game, not actually make the game itself. And so I also want to bring up an example of Ninja Theory, who made Hellblade 2. Their chief of staff, they actually have one, and she's DEI as well. But nobody complained about Hellblade 2. It was fine. Okay, there was some other issues, like it being too short, or it being too pricey, or the chromatic filter was making things blurry for the game and stuff, and it was a wonderful game. But again, it was just too short, or for some people too, had issues with the engagement, like it was more just kind of walking around and doing stuff. So people had different complaints, but like DEI wasn't one of them. And that was a game that we already had, I think earlier this year in 2024. So again, just because someone is connected with a project doesn't mean it's going to be trash. It's not just Melissa Boone. Okay, this is an industry thing, and I think we need to remember that. So who's actually running the studio? The head studio of Halo Studios is now Pierre, I hope I'm saying this right, Pierre Hintz, and he's actually been there since 2018. Pierre Hintz is responsible for fixing the bugs and connecting the multiplayer for the Master Chief Collection and actually upgrading it to 4K resolution. Again, that was not perfect, but he is responsible for making this one of the best games on Xbox, as it's more of a collection of multiple games. He took over when the founder Ross left for family medical issues. He's been in the gaming industry for 26 years. He loves Halo, though Infinite was a rough time. It's been quite the mess. And I am hearing that it's better now, but again, it's not perfect. But, you know, he, along with the leads and the chief of staff probably as well, have probably talked about the slip space engine that they've been working with, and that actually we're finding out that it was causing a lot of the issues with Halo Infinite, and they're wanting to switch to Unreal, and they're trying to rebrand to get away from the bad reputation that Halo has become. And they're trying to start over, and I don't blame them for that. I'm also, a lot like you guys, I'm also cautious. I want to make sure that it's actually a good game before I sink my money into it. Now, I already have Game Pass Ultimate, so whatever is coming, I will be showing to you guys on the channel in the coming decade, whatever they're going to be doing. But yeah, hopefully everything goes well with Unreal Engine 5 and going forward, but me personally, I'm not overly worried yet. Okay, the studio knows that they messed up. They've heard, too, some of the representation and how people feel about the game itself and how it's launched, and some of the DEI stuff, too. Okay, they've heard that. The community manager even said some words pretty recently this week to indicate that, you know, again, bringing up that we're focusing on the fact that Melissa Boone is African American, and that's not the problem. And so, again, there's just miscommunication here on both sides of the coin. And, you know, we should be respectful. Again, if you don't like it, don't buy the game. Okay? Don't buy GTA 6 either. Don't buy COD either, right? Just don't buy them, because this stuff, unfortunately, is not going away. There are still good studios out there, like Motive, like From Software, okay, that are making games and just focusing on making the game. Even the Science Institute, I think, was another one. I think that's what they're called, that made Black Myth Wukong. Same with Saber Interactive, that made Space Marine 2. So yeah, there are good ones out there, and go enjoy them. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think it's getting pretty crazy just how, let me just be honest with you guys. There are some channels now on YouTube that all they're focused on is just ranting about DEI all the time. And there are people that definitely want to hear that, and I think, too, it's pertinent to bring it up sometimes for information, and to, you know, kind of try to have a cater to the broader audience. Some people care, some people do, some people love it, and anywhere in between. And so, again, we're all different types of gamers out there, but we're at a point where we don't have anything positive to say ever. And sometimes if you have nothing good to say, it's just better not to say it. Okay, it's purposefully why I've avoided actually talking about this stuff on my channel. I'll maybe mention it or bring it up a little bit, but like, it's getting to the point now in October of 2024, it's just getting ridiculous. Yes, we know it's in there. Yes, we know it's not going away. But we need to, too, also focus on what we know instead of speculating to death and already damning Halo Studios while they're trying to start over, knowing they have messed up. We got to give them props for that, at least to an extent. And if you don't want to, that's okay. You don't have to. Just don't buy their stuff. You know, we should all be voting with our money. But, too, it's like, if you think that, you know, in some cases, when you've messed up in life and you think you deserve a second chance, or you would like people to give you a second chance, you got to give them and dish them out too. Because otherwise it's extremely hypocritical to just be like, well, I want to think about people how I want, and I want people to see me how I want them to see me. Okay, it doesn't work that way. You're either going to give people the benefit of the doubt and second chances for stuff, and when people see you do that, they will do that for you too. When you make mistakes and we all do, honestly, we all do make mistakes. We're all human, but like, let's view people as such instead of expecting them to be perfect. And this is just a bigger lesson than just the gaming industry. It's way bigger. It's way bigger. It's in every aspect of life. And while a lot of people would like to just tuck it, dip out and not just have to deal with it, that's fine. You're going to live a pretty lonely life. And if that's accepting to you, have at it. But too, like, people can be some of the most amazing aspects of life too. But you have to be willing to work with them. And like, we don't have to go attacking people. The screen makes you feel immune, but honestly, it's just making you a monster. And again, I think it's good to bring up some changes. I think it's good to bring up stuff like this in the gaming industry, but in an appropriate dose. Because when we're constantly ranting and raving on this, I've even talked to other people currently, and some of even my buddies, it's like, okay, yes, it's in there, but it's like you haven't even played the game yet. You don't even know all of the details of the game, and you're already damning it. While in other cases, same people, DEI is extremely present, and they're still wanting to go out and buy the game because they like the game. Or because the gameplay is good, and I think that's what we should focus on again. Again, none of this DEI is going away. It's permanent. It's permanent. And it's been here, it's just been other names, but it's been here since the 2000s. And is it pretty prominent now in some places? Yes. But man, let's find a way to accept it and move on. And the stuff you enjoyed as a kid, you're never going to hit that moment again because you were a kid. You never experienced games like that before. Now everything feels like it's been repeated to death, and that's because, well, we've experienced a lot of it. We've pretty much experienced it all. But that doesn't mean that we still can't enjoy fun and good games and make good memories with more people and make new friends and stuff. Like, if you want to just be in the corner and complaining with everybody else about how sucky the gaming industry is, I guess then go for it and be unhappy. But it's like, we don't have to just completely focus on that. Again, vote with your money. But, engage in a healthy way with it. Engage with the industry, engage with the community, engage with the other gamers, because that's what we're all here for. Again, I agree, Melissa Boone should not be helping make the game and making decisions for the game. Yes, I agree with that, but again, that is not her job. She is the chief of staff. Does the chief of staff make decisions for the presidency? No, the president does. The chief of staff is to help the functionality of the executive branch. And that's what her job is. So until we actually see hard evidence of how much influence she's actually going to have in this position, let's wait for a game to come out, and then let's complain about it to death. Because I'll be right there with you. If it's so smack gob in the face, it's going to be frustrating. And I'll talk about it here on the channel. But to actually wait for that to happen, though. Because we don't need to be like everybody else complaining and ranting about this. And sometimes it's just better to check out, and maybe that's what some of you listening should do. Just completely check out of video games and just get another hobby. Because honestly, if you're not happy anymore, if it's not fun anymore, okay, then just get out. Find something else that's more fun and enjoyable. Being grumpy in life, it's not worth it. I've seen people do it. I have family members that do it. And they are just some of the most unhappy people ever. And they can never be happy about anything. So yeah, don't be like them. Okay? Have some constructive criticism. Be respectful about it. And let's all be adults like we think we are. Moving on. So something's going weird with the Xbox store. Dragon Ball Sparking Zero didn't have a standard edition available, which I thought was kind of weird. But honestly, this made me chuckle after a while because it was actually early access. So just to let people know, if you're looking for a game or it's out now or you're seeing gameplay as something and you're curious about it or whatever, make sure that it's not early access. Maybe that's what you're missing. Because yeah, now of course, since early access is over, we actually have the launch date. The standard edition is out and you can see that just fine. So, but yeah, I just thought that was kind of funny. I didn't put the two pieces together and was ready to talk about it. Just be like, there's no standard edition. That's insane. $100 for this game. But the game's doing extremely well. People are liking it quite a bit. It's got a pretty high rating, and it's already sold over 3 million copies in less than a week. 3 million. So yeah, they're on their way to be making some pretty good money. Game Freak, they're part of Nintendo. They had a huge hack. It was basically like a terabyte or terabytes of information that came out about Nintendo and certain IPs. This was August of 2024. And no spoilers, so don't even have to worry about that. But we learned about upcoming movies and TV show stuff and plot lines. We learned about source code for some older games, reason for design choices in certain games, and why they chose certain plot lines. We also learned too about the Switch 2 called OZ. That's the code name. We also learned about upcoming Switch games. And yeah, there's still stuff coming out about this. It's pretty insane. Also, 2,600 employees had leaked personal information. And they're currently being contacted one-on-one to let them know, hey, you've been compromised or whatever. But maybe, too, this would actually explain why Nintendo is trying to sue and copyright strike everybody. Because that's really been getting bad. Of course, Nintendo wouldn't be happy. There's lots of secrets out there, a lot of information out there, and even source code that they wouldn't want to be public. And honestly, there's nothing they can really do about it. It seems like the hack actually happened with phishing, and that sucks because I'm sure that employee is in super trouble by now. He's probably already fired. There could also be some legal ramifications too, civilly for him, unfortunately. So yeah, Nintendo's probably just trying to stop more leaks, probably trying to stop this stuff from coming out, and so they're clamping hard on emulators and anything that they can just basically get their hands on. We also found out, too, that there was also some leaks separately for Mario Party Jamboree. And this was a separate source. And so, yeah, Nintendo's just had a lot of leaks lately. And I'm sure it's just absolutely bugging them to death. Next, Tomb Raider. So, Volume 1, you know that the remaster, you guys have been watching me play 1, 2, and 3. Those are actually in a playlist if you're interested on YouTube. Gaming Garbage 22, and they've been really fun, actually. But we're getting Volume 2 in February of next year, and this is going to be 4, 5, and 6. And yeah, we're going to get the 3 games in the DLC. Again, it'll be $30. And I don't think it's going to go on sale this time for pre-order like it did last time. It was 10% off if you bought it ahead of time through the store and stuff. I'm sure, too, there will also be physical copies available. I will be trying to grab one if they make one for Series X. But this is pretty much going to be on all of the platforms. So whatever you want to grab them on, they're going to be available. And yeah, we found out, too, that Tomb Raider 1, or Tomb Raider Volume 1, actually sold millions already. And so, yeah, selling several million within, even especially with it just being some remasters, honestly, that's pretty good. And I think with the other volume coming out, it's going to push more people to engage, to buy, and that's going to have more people buy Volume 1. So yeah, they're going to be making some pretty good number. Some pretty good money. We don't have exact numbers, but yeah, if they do show up and I hear about them, I'll be telling you about it. But yeah, it's actually been pretty successful. And the entire Tomb Raider IP has sold over 100 million copies across all 13 of their games, which is nuts. So yeah, they've definitely been making some money. Update on Steam. Due to a California law, they're currently letting you know that your digital online only is actually a license. You're not actually owning the files. And so if you go to GOG, you can actually own the files. You have an offline launcher that allows you to launch those files. With Steam, you have to be connected to Steam in order to launch the game. And if anything big happened to Steam, it all just absolutely disappear, which would be brutal. That'd be awful, honestly. But yeah, it is a license, so that's actually pretty plain and pretty blunt and blatant right now. And yeah, it just reminded me too of Crunchyroll. I think last year, people had bought a whole bunch of stuff from Crunchyroll. Crunchyroll was now going to be merged into, basically shut down and merged into something else. I forget who it was, but people lost all of their digital movies and TV shows and stuff. And there's basically just no way to get that back. And yeah, again, I don't think Steam is going anywhere, but it's just kind of surprising Um, how some people really don't quite imagine this yet, and that's why I'm bringing it up. It's just like the digital stuff you don't actually own, and this is why physical is important to have. And when you have games out there that you would like to own, quote unquote, make sure you grab the physical copy. If it is available, grab it, because as long as people are buying physical copies, they will continue to make them available. Um, and the manufacturers that make these in a big factory somewhere and put them in boxes and cases for us to buy, um, some of them are shutting down. And so, yeah, I don't think, of course, it's going to be forever that will actually have physical copies. Eventually it will end up just like PC, where it's just digital only. But yeah, we want to actually own and preserve our games, and licensing, at the end of the day, it's not going to cut it. Because if the power goes out or the internet or some server goes offline, well, there basically goes your access until they fix it. And that's horrible. We also want to see, too, that actually some of these games, but physical, too, doesn't necessarily mean you're safe. Some of these games, like Redfall and others, of course, are online. And so we want these games to be patched in with an offline mode. This also reminds me of like The Crew, the first one. This was like online only. Ubisoft shut it down. People got pissed because their physical copies don't even work anymore. I think Concord is another great example. Again, that was an online only game, and even just owning the physical copy, again, doesn't mean that you're safe. And while some people think that unless it's completely offline or has an offline mode, yeah, you're not. If there's a required online component, which basically most games are now, this is how they collect that data to be able to continue to help sell you things. Yeah, it still doesn't mean you're safe, and that's just a sucky reality. So it'd be nice to actually see some of these changes, but at least allowing and telling you, hey, you're buying a license that's actually kind of nice, is starting to put it in our face that, hey, it's like you don't actually own this. And we should fight against that any way we can. Red Dead Redemption, it's actually coming to PC after 14 years. Can you believe that? This is coming out on October 29th. So you can already play Red Dead Redemption 2, but the first one, Redemption 1, is actually coming. So yeah, 14 years is kind of 13 years too late, but it is actually coming. And two, we've continued to talk about here on the channel that publishers actually want to get their games out there, that they want to be able to broaden their opportunity to sell. And so yeah, the bigger the markets, the better. And getting them out on PC when they haven't even been there in the first place is a way to do that. And so some, of course, will be buying this right away. But probably most will actually wait for a sale, because if you've wanted to play Red Dead Redemption 2, you've probably already played it somehow. Whether it's like through Steam Deck or Xbox, PlayStation, you've already probably had your way through it. It might even be out on Nintendo Switch now by this point, because again, this is a 14-year-old game. It is kind of the PC version is going to be like visually updated to an extent, but don't think of it as exactly like a remaster. But yeah, the game still actually holds up pretty well. So if you haven't played the first one yet, there's your opportunity on PC to actually play it. This made me think too that actually Rockstar, excuse me, Rockstar is actually wanting maybe a little more cash. GTA 6 is probably getting pretty costly. Again, this is a game that's been in development for a long, long time. And it's honestly been delayed a couple of times. People were thinking maybe end of 23. Well, that didn't happen. Spring, summer of 24. That didn't happen either. And now we're looking at fall of 2024. But there's still some push to that, or no, excuse me. This is 2025, fall of 2025 now. And this even could be rumored to be pushed back to 2026, depending on the development and how it's going. So maybe partly Rockstar is just trying to figure out a way, or Take-Two, wanting to figure out a way to get a little bit more money. Because, yeah, GTA 6 is costing them a pretty penny. We're looking at like $1 billion to actually make and design this game. Maybe even more than that. I definitely am curious to actually see how expensive this is going to be. But yeah, all the way out to 2026. Good grief, might as well just push it to make it a next gen release or something, man. Because yeah, it's been in development for forever. We're over 10 years now. So yeah, it's pretty easy to say that development isn't going very smooth with GTA 6, and so it makes sense wanting to just release what they can on more platforms to try to get more money. There could be some other issues too that we don't know about. A lot of financials are kept pretty close to the chest for a lot of these companies. But two, we're already seeing exclusives turn multi-platform because again, it's just like I said earlier, it's just more money. And yeah, companies are feeling the pinch too. I know it probably doesn't look it or doesn't feel like it, but I was just looking at State Farm last year, or no, 2022, they lost $8.5 billion after everything was said and done. Last year, 23, they lost $4 billion. So State Farm hasn't been making any money. And even though they're still running and operating, they're operating at a loss. And it's not just like for a few months or a few quarters. It's like this is 2 full years now for a big insurance company. And they're still operating at a loss in the billions. So yeah, companies are not doing well either. It's not just us little guys. A lot of companies are having troubles too, and a lot of small businesses. So again, any way to bring revenue through the door, companies are going to do it. Oh yeah, I did want to mention the Sony Tokyo GameShow. I was kind of expecting Sony to have some type of like showcase or presentation of what was going on, but we didn't get that. We did get that for Xbox, but that was actually pretty much it. What we did get from Sony was that they did have a booth there, and the biggest thing for them was Death Stranding 2. Calling it a gameplay trailer, but it wasn't gameplay. It was really cinematics. We had maybe about 20 seconds of gameplay, which was okay. It wasn't great for those that really enjoy Death Stranding 1. Death Stranding 2 is on your list. But I definitely say it's probably not going to pull or bring in much of a new audience. Because, again, what they showed was, again, a Death Stranding game. And a lot of it really didn't make a lot of sense. A lot of it didn't really have a ton of context. It was just kind of there. But the idea, the plot, is like now he is somewhere else and helping reconnect. Just like the first game. So that's pretty much it. It's definitely a boss fight with a guitar. That was pretty interesting. Also at the showcase, they did have quite a few booths for Astrobot, also for Monster Hunter Wilds, where people could actually demo this, which was great. They also showed some stuff with YouTube and some more gameplay for certain games. Most of them we already knew, but really not a lot of exclusives either. Again, games that will also be coming to Xbox, whether on release date or at a later time. The other thing that I thought was pretty interesting is that they did actually have 2 stations with the PlayStation 5 Pro running, and you could play Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, or you could play Gran Turismo 7. And the reason this kind of shocks me is because I know that people played on those during the 3 days that Sony had their booth there at the Tokyo Game Show, but nobody's talking about it. So that's kind of weird. The only person that I know of that's actually gotten hands-on experience and has talked about it over in Japan is actually one of the guys from Digital Foundry. And yeah, check out their channel too, by the way. They're great at giving kind of like information downloads or dumps on what's going on, and they are all pretty technical over there, which suits me just fine. And so yeah, go ahead and check them out if you've never heard of them before. But they've been around for quite a while, and they're definitely more PC guys, but they keep up with console stuff too. So let's talk about Xbox. Their $1 trial for Game Pass Ultimate, it's gone. This happened 10 days before Black Ops 6 is supposed to release, and honestly, it's like they really think that's going to cut into their margin much. Maybe they're trying to protect the campaign for Black Ops 6, because again, it's not going to take that long, just a few hours, honestly. But this was kind of shocking to me, because maybe now they've actually got enough on Game Pass, they don't feel like they really need to have a trial. But again, it's not like everybody actually has Game Pass. Most people still don't. Because because yeah, PC again is hundreds of millions, almost a billion players around the world, and then there's also Xbox on top of it, and then we're getting into cloud and everything else, and so it's like, is their service really that good all around to no longer give a trial? I don't know. It kind of seems like a kind of snubby premium move to me. Um, and PlayStation is already doing that too with some of their stuff and the price hikes that they've had and the frustration with the games this year. So yeah, again, I don't think Xbox should be doing this. But too, yeah, I think it sucks. I'm sure quite a few people did actually try the trial, to actually try the beta for themselves. That was one way to do it. There was also an open beta where you could try Black Ops 6 multiplayer for a few days. But yeah, it looks like now Xbox actually wants players to spend $20 just to try it or to try to service. And $20 is quite a bit to actually try something. And if you don't like it, you actually feel like you wasted money. But because, yeah, this is a 2,000% increase from what it used to be. 2,000%. That is insane. $1 just feels pretty much not risky. You get to try for 14 days. And if you don't like it, hey, no harm, no foul. You only spent, you only lost $1, quote unquote. But yeah, now for $20 to try it for a month is pretty expensive. And there's no incentivization there to try it, just like there was with the trial. Xbox also did this just before Starfield's release. Some of you may not remember, we actually had $1 for a month. And then they changed it to 14 days. And the 14 days would run out just before the actual launch of Starfield. How convenient. So maybe we should have seen this coming with a big title, even bigger title like Call of Duty. But yeah, there is no more trial anymore. And I think it's a really good idea to actually let people try Game Pass for $1. Because there's a lot of people still not completely sold on it. And so it'd be a better business move to actually allow that to be a possibility. So it really lowers the barrier to entry. There's almost no risk to the player or to Xbox, honestly. It's just for a couple of weeks. But yeah, now it's just completely gone. And yeah, maybe Xbox thinks Black Ops 6 will be so huge it'll pull for Game Pass. But again, not everybody plays Call of Duty. And there's plenty of other games out there. So yeah, I just personally don't think it's a good move for Xbox. It just kind of leaves a bad taste in people's mouths that were maybe thinking of actually doing this and maybe trying out some of the other games as well. But now you just have to spend that $20 if you actually want to try games, just like with maybe EA Play Premium or with Ubisoft Plus. And that's kind of spendy. It's still cheaper than just buying the game outright. But if you're going to play the campaign on Black Ops 6, you're probably going to play the multiplayer too. And the zombies and everything else. Why not? And you're going to want to play it for more than just a month. So, I don't know. We'll see how this goes. I'm very curious if Black Ops 6 will actually pull Game Pass subscribers, if any. And, Game Pass certainly isn't for everyone. It's mainly for those that wish to play several games a year, first and third party. I think that's one benefit that Game Pass certainly is that it allows people access to try a bunch of games. Or to actually be able to play them without actually having to pay much for them. So just in the last 12 months ish, there's been about 40 games that I've wanted to play or try. Some of them I've played already. Some I'm glad I didn't actually spend money on. I just got them through Game Pass. But again, if you're a guy that just enjoys, or gal, that just enjoys playing maybe one or two games, or you're not really that excited much anymore, Game Pass is a hard sell. Because again, it's all about the volume of access, and if you're just not that excited for it, like Netflix or Paramount Plus or Disney Plus, again, if there's not really much you want to engage with, it's not a good value. So, yeah, there's definitely some games coming down the pipe, like Adam's Fall, Black Ops 6. We're going to have Stalker 2 as well in November, and then also the Indiana Jones game. I'll be showing those all to you here on the channel. I do also have a 12-month review of Game Pass Ultimate with how I thought about it, how I used it, where and how it was beneficial and how it wasn't. I'll work on linking this down below in the description. Okay, on to the last piece. This has been going on for a while, hasn't it? I think they're all long anymore, honestly. I mean, there's so much that's been happening toward this time of the year. I can't keep them under an hour to save my life. I'm not sure how long I'm at, but I don't want to mess up the screen. Okay, Ubisoft is in hot water again. They actually have a class action lawsuit going on, allegedly sharing personal information with Meta, also known as Facebook, while purchasing a game on the Ubisoft store. It's actually being logged into. Well, let's see. Let me start over. I actually dumped water on this last page, so it's a little muddy, if you know what I mean. So yeah, while purchasing a game on the Ubisoft store, if you're currently logged into your Facebook account on your phone or whatever device you're using, a tracking program, Pixel, will actually capture your data and store it or send it to Facebook. There's actually laws that prevent companies like Ubisoft from capturing data or sending it with basically out permission, because again, there's privacy laws to protect you. But Ubisoft also has to notify customers. And Ubisoft, as far as we know, hasn't told anybody. So this is just going to be more money lost for them. This is probably going to push the stock down some more this week and next week. And yeah, I do want to iterate, though, that this is only actually buying directly from Ubisoft's store. If you buy through Xbox or if you buy through PlayStation or Steam or whatever, it doesn't affect you. It's just buying directly through Ubisoft store. So it doesn't maybe affect that many people. I don't think too many people actually buy directly from Ubisoft. But just in case, be aware of that. Wait for an email or something in the mail, that kind of thing. And yeah, there's a class action lawsuit going on. It'd make me wonder, too, if Facebook actually gets in trouble for this. Because, again, they're holding information that they shouldn't, and they have a capture program called Pixel that's taking the information. I don't know. Seems a little muddy there, too. So, yeah, we'll have to see. Bandai Namco made it in the news. They're kind of, quote, firing employees. Due to strict laws in Japan, companies really have to show financial hardship to actually be firing employees. And so what Bandai Namco has been doing is they have these small rooms, and they basically send employees there to basically do nothing or very menial tasks that don't help do or produce anything for the company. Sharpen pencils, stack paper, that kind of thing. Just really non-tasks. And they do this so that people can ultimately just quit instead of having to prove that they need to, let people go and whatever. It's just easier just to make them quit on their own, just grind them down to nothing mentally to where they just can't take it anymore. Honestly, that's pretty awful. It also saves them on severance. Again, if you volunteer to quit, well, they don't have to really pay you anything. So far, there's been 100 people that have quit due to this practice since April of this year, and 100 more are expected. Bandai says they aren't actually doing this. Employees are, quote, waiting for work or for tasks to do within the company, but it's not like Bandai Namco is not making games or not publishing or not making deals and stuff. They could probably be more productive, but again, they're not doing that. But since April, it's like, really? You're having employees wait since April to actually do something? How many months is that? Let's see. May, June, July, August, September, October. Seriously? 6 months? 6 months they're waiting? No, that's total BS. I'm calling it right now. They're also canceling games. There's a mobile game, Tales of the Rays, that's being canceled, and they're also pausing development on One Piece and Naruto, and then also another unknown game that was commissioned by Nintendo. So we don't know again which name that is or which game that is. Well, maybe it's part of the leak from Game Freak. I don't know. We'll have to see. But yeah, that kind of sucks. So they're wanting to cut employees. They're cutting back projects. Yeah, that's honestly kind of wild. I do want to iterate, though. Some people are making this sound like, including with the thumbnails and stuff, that this is like a bloodbath of layoffs and stuff, 100 people. Honestly, it's not really that big. So it's split up into 4 units, Bandai Namco. The American unit has about 300 employees. European unit has 600. Asian unit has 150. And Japanese unit has about 225. So 100 people is a good chunk, right? But again, they still have well over 1,000 employees. And so they're cutting, if actually all 200 leave, they're cutting maybe around 15%, which is still a big number. But again, not all of those employees have actually left yet. What I do find interesting is that we know that from LinkedIn, the Asian unit has lost 3% in the last 6 months, and then the Japanese unit has lost 1%. The American unit has gained 5%, and European has gained 3%. So I think that's interesting. The American and European units are gaining employees, while the Asian and Japanese markets are losing employees. And it makes me wonder why. Wouldn't they want workers closer to home? Or have the salaries ballooned so much? Has inflation become such an issue since they are based in Japan that they actually need to let employees go? And that it's actually cheaper to have them over in the States or over in Europe? I don't know. That's kind of crazy. Something's going on there. I don't feel like we quite have the whole story. Maybe more will come out later this year. Astrobot is going to be getting several free small updates. These will basically be small DLCs. We're getting them October 24th, October 31st, November 7th, and November 14th. Honestly, I think this is a great move by Sony. They're taking care of their fans, and they're giving it away for free. How nice is that? But again, I feel like Astrobot was kind of meant to be a smaller game for them, but Astrobot has probably been one of the bigger games for them this year because, again, they've been messing up so much on all of their other IPs and games that they thought were going to be glorious, like Concord. And what a mess that has honestly been. Lastly, Ubisoft employees are on strike starting October 15th. And it's over pay and calls back to the office. Roughly 700 employees are currently on strike. They don't necessarily know how long the strike is going to go, but they have said that, this is roughly going to be like, maybe 3 to 5 days, maybe even a week. I don't really think, it didn't sound like from some of the people at the strike that they're planning on doing this any longer than a week, but we'll see. What we've also seen, too, from some of the other studios, and like Italy, for example, are also striking along with them, but for not as long. Again, because they actually need to be making money. And it's tough over there in Italy, too. But a union has actually called for them to strike. And the issue was that the company was not willing to actually talk with the union reps. And the company, Ubisoft, made the decision just to call employees back to the office at headquarters. And the employees were like, nope, this is a problem. And the union too. And so again, this wasn't talked about. It was just a forced change. And again, with other issues that have already been going on, all of the stuff surrounding Ubisoft lately hasn't been good for press. It's got to be hard to work there, honestly, because constantly your company is in the news all the time. Yeah, in a bad way. That's got to be awful. And yeah, there wasn't any communication. They just did it. And the union was wanting to talk about it and actually negotiate, because some of these people actually live pretty far away, and gas is incredibly expensive over there. Here in the States, we maybe pay like $3-4 a gallon, and over there they pay like $3-4 for every quart. Like their a gallon of gas for them would be like $8-12, which is crazy. Like that is very, very expensive. So when you live pretty far away and remote to work's working fine, you just maybe can't financially handle actually going into work every day because it just costs too much money. I do want to iterate, though, that this isn't honestly the first time that Ubisoft has had strikes or calls for a strike. It's France, and they actually strike all the time. And they're constantly striking and complaining over there. I think it has to do with their history back to the French Revolution. So they've just never quite gotten out of that habit. But things are also very tough for them over there, too. I mean, economically, they're not doing very well. It's been a rough administration with Macron over there. I think they do have someone else by now. But that doesn't mean they aren't still feeling those effects. And so, yeah, Ubisoft just keeps showing up in the news, folks. And it keeps making that stock go lower. But I'm waiting for some more things to actually happen with Ubisoft so that I can present an entire state of gaming for Ubisoft and what their future is going to look like, because there's still some holes right now. There's a lot of speculation going on with what's going to happen. The biggest one is that we've heard of a takeover basically from Tencent, but there's also some kind of rules and regulations there. But I really don't think the people like the family that actually owns and founded Ubisoft, I don't think they're going to go down without a fight. And looking at their financials, Ubisoft actually looks okay. It's not great. They still have a really high debt load, like 65-ish%. But they still have more cash and assets where they could actually take care of all of that, but it wouldn't be without layoffs and some other issues going on that would drastically affect the company. But they're not bankrupt. I'll put it that way. And actually, for the first time in roughly a year and a half, they're actually making a profit. Will they make a profit this time? Probably not. Star Wars Outlaws really didn't do that well. Undersold millions of copies. Assassin's Creed Shadows is delayed, and that's probably going to undersell too. Because again, people are kind of getting tired of Ubisoft and the DEI stuff, just like we were talking about. But again, we should be respectful about it. But again, vote with your money. And companies, people that think DEI is great and purposeful and stuff, it's that's fine. Believe that. It's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But you still are a business. And if your customers don't like your product or service or the way in which you're doing it, they're not going to give you money. And there's plenty of studios that have already closed because of the crappy games that have been sold and the pushes towards stuff. Just like Dustborn. Oh my word, like that couldn't be more DEI in a game than any other game I've ever seen. So that is just crazy. But yeah, you got to sell something that people want. And again, if people don't want it, it's a business, folks. That's all it is. It's not personal. It's just good business. That should be a good lesson for all of us. So thanks for tuning in, folks. You can always find me over at Gaming Garbage 22 over at YouTube. Don't forget also Discord, Twitter X, and Twitch. Twitch, you can follow me there first and get everything right away, and then stuff eventually comes over to YouTube, whether with editing or just with other stuff getting out there. And hopefully you guys are doing well. And honestly, take some time to think about what I said, folks. Let's actually take a look at what games are going to be produced from these, quote, DEI studios, just like Halo. And let's actually judge the game for being a game. But it's not like DEI stuff is going away. It's here to stay. And if you'd rather not, that's totally okay. Well, I'm rhyming to death. So with that, folks, hopefully you guys are doing well. I'll see you guys on the next one.